I can neither confirm nor deny that this is a terrible conversation to be having.
And welcome back to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. I'm Travis Ritchie, and this is episode 24. This is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite albums or playlists to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and we together, well, that was awful, and we come together...
Oh, no! Oh, no!
This is going off the rails so soon. We come together on this podcast to discuss it all, and with me as always is my good friend
Matt Runquist. Travis, that was a total mess, but I loved it. This week I watched Kingsman, The Secret Service, and you listened to the classic Interpol album Antics.
I absolutely did. I also rewatched Kingsman 2 to be reacquainted with that. Woof, wow, that was bad. 24. This podcast is going to be recorded in real time.
Oh yeah, definitely. 24, real time, all good. We're on it. We're on top of it. I've had caffeine.
Exactly.
You've had Huel.
I do. Maybe I need a little more caffeine, and that's the problem with me. I've only had 2 cups of coffee today, and they were both half coffees. So
I am a total caffeine hound in the sense that I've inured myself almost completely to the effects of caffeine. I can drink an entire pot of coffee and not be buzzing off the rooftops. I can have caffeine right before bed. It has no effect on me, which is bad, right? Objectively, but it's good for me. Because I like coffee.
Yeah, I mean, there's some science apparently out there that says coffee is good for you, but whether or not caffeine is a part of that or it's just other elements in the coffee, I don't know. But I used to have a very healthy caffeine addiction as well, especially after I got to LA and worked for Starbucks. I was drinking a pot of coffee a day. Imagine 4 venti cups of coffee a day. And also I was putting a lot of sugar in it too. And so I realized I had a caffeine addiction because if I slept in and woke up, say, past noon or, whatever, I would have a headache. And I realized it was because of the caffeine addiction. So I was like, I don't like being addicted to anything. So I made a conscious effort to cut down to 2 cups a day instead of 4. And then... at one point, I was talking to my doctor about my digestion, and he was like, maybe you should cut down on your caffeine. And so at the time I was cold brewing my coffee, so I just started I put half decaf beans in with my caffeinated beans. Mm-hmm. And so essentially I'm drinking I'm drinking 2 cups, but the equivalent of 1 caffeinated cup of coffee a day.
Okay, that makes sense. I believe it.
And then I allow myself extra if I need it, and frequently I do.
Well, Travis, I have so much to get into this week, so I'm not even going to wait for you to ask. My wife is doing much, much better. Recovery from surgery is going very well. There were a couple more rough days after we last recorded. We are recording, by the way, on Father's Day, so happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you. You're an actual father, and I'm a fur baby father now.
You're a puppy father. It's all good. And so on a health front, good news there. Nothing major to report. Then I have in my neighborhood a nesting pair of red-tailed hawks, only about 2 houses away. It is so cool. Every morning I get to see them flying around. There are 3 juvenile hawks as well. So that means there are 5 red-tailed hawks within 100 yards of my house. It is so cool, Travis. So cool.
Is there something special about a red-tailed hawk?
They're just big and cool, and they hunt things, and they're like if eagles were like a little more Charles Bronson, They're like metal.
I think when I was in Nashville, there was a hawk that I would see on my walks sometimes, on my hawk walk. And but one time I actually went, and I think this was last summer, and I got it on video. This hawk was sitting on top of a telephone pole, and this little bird started picking on it. like
Yeah.
chased it off the telephone pole, and this tiny little bird was chasing a hawk through the air. And I'm like, doesn't it know it's a hawk? Like,
Yeah. Well, so what happens is hawks are ambush hunters, right? And so the little birds in the neighborhood sort of team up, right? And they work together to like let the other birds know where the hawks are. And they will, in our neighborhood, it's especially the crows hate the red-tailed hawks, and the little blackbirds, the grackles, will absolutely, they'll dive bomb them. They'll stand a few feet away from them and be like really loud and, you know, trying to harass them out of the neighborhood. But because this is a nesting pair and they're raising young, they're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And then finally on Friday night, this probably won't be a big deal to you, but it was a big deal to me. The classic queer punk band Pansy Division, who formed in 1991 and became kind of a big deal, but kind of not a big deal. But San Francisco punk band, the very out themes of like super gay back in the 90s when being like super out gay was not a thing, and they were groundbreaking and they were awesome. And I got to see them last night in a tiny little club that held like maybe 200 people, and it was really, I absolutely loved it. If you ever get the chance to see Pansy Division live, they're a lot of fun. They put on a great show.
Pansy Division. What a great name.
It is a great name. It is absolutely a great name.
I do appreciate a great name for a band. I think we talked about this back when we were, what was the band I was watching that I thought maybe their whole appeal was their name?
Gosh.
Alice in Chains.
Yes, Alice in Chains. That's right. You were really into the name Alice in Chains. You were like, I wish this was a better band because I love the name. Yeah.
But Pansy Division is an even better name. I am a sucker for a pun.
Yeah.
And, I love
well,
that.
I'll send you a link to my favorite song of theirs. It's called Love, Love, Love. Really good. Everybody should check it out. It's Luv, Luv, Luv. Really fun.
Okay. Well,
so
maybe
listeners,
a future episode, you could assign them.
It's entirely possible, but there's a lot of explicit homoerotic themes in a lot of their music. So,
well, I certainly don't have the ears for that. I am personally pure as the driven snow.
Well, we are a family podcast. So as you so gently remind me every time I accidentally drop an F-bomb on here.
Okay.
So,
well,
anyways,
I think families can be maybe not that explicit. Okay, well, we'll have to think about it.
Travis, how was your week? Tell me about it.
You know, my week was fairly uneventful, and like actually uneventful, I think. I mean, I did a lot of classes at my acting studio, which is the Collaborative here in LA, and it's great because they are it's a group of actors. It's 100 actors, and we're a nonprofit company, and it's an audition required group. So in order to get in, there's a level of talent that you have to achieve, and so that's nice to kind of, and I love taking classes with them because I get to see amazing actors acting in class. And so I am running for the board of our company at the moment. We're having elections right now. So I ran last year and didn't make it. So we'll see what happens this year. There are certainly a bunch of very good names running for the board. So we'll see how that goes.
Are you looking for campaign contributions?
No.
Okay.
I almost said yes, but no, I don't need that. I want to run a clean campaign. So, but yeah. And then today I had a friend's baby shower that I went to, which is great. It's a gay couple who is having a baby through a surrogate. So they had a egg donor, and then are having a surrogate carry the baby, and the surrogate was at the party, and I got to meet her. I don't want to name her name, but
right.
She was wonderful, and it was very interesting to see how much joy she was getting from giving this gift to somebody, and so that was a really neat experience, and so that's pretty much it, though. Otherwise, it's been just spending time with Coco. I had a game night with some friends, and very, very chill. Very, very chill week. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. That's really good times. Yeah. Good times.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, let's get into the meat.
The meat of the episode. Let's switch things up. what did you say? Swing things up? What do you say?
Shake things up.
Let's shake things up and do the movie first.
The movie first. All right. Well, let me tell you about Kingsman: The Secret Service. This is a movie. Last week when I was introducing it, I said it was by Alex Vaughn, who is actually a person in my acting class, my acting studio. It's actually by Matthew Vaughn. Directed this movie. It's a spy action comedy. It was put out in 2014, and it was kind of inventive at the time for being for taking the spy genre and making it more fun. And it's not the first movie to turn the spy genre on its head. I mean, we do have movies like Triple X and even Mission Impossible came along and kind of upped the stakes from what we were used to with James Bond. But this movie had a visual style that was very high octane. It was very graphic in its violence. Like, lots of people die in this movie, and I apologize to you because I didn't actually remember how graphic it was. And so I was watching these things going, ooh, Matthew's not going to like that.
It was graphic, but it wasn't gory. So, I mean,
it was graphic in a comic book kind of way.
Yeah. I was able to deal with it. But thank you for your concern.
Yeah. And in fact, it is based on a comic book or a graphic novel, and so that's kind of where that comes from. But the thing I think I love most about this movie is the cast. It stars Colin Firth as kind of the James Bond lead spy character, and Colin Firth has never been someone who anybody would put in. Like, he has always been kind of the I don't know what's the word to describe Colin Firth in his movies. I don't know. Unassuming, I guess, would be a good word. Like, he's the guy in Love Actually who is pining after the girl, you know? And that's a very Colin Firth kind of role. He did play, I think, in The King's Speech, which is a good dramatic role for him. But here he is kicking absolute butt as a spy. And,
nice recovery.
Thank you. And he also, so he's training Taron Egerton to be a young spy, and it's Taron Egerton's breakout role. It also has Samuel L. Jackson as the villain character, Michael Caine as the kind of elder statesman spy, and Mark Strong, who is just wonderful. I love Mark Strong, and he is kind of the support spy. Like, he's the techie support guy in this movie. And he's wonderful. So, I don't know. It has a sense of humor, and it is. I really like the tongue-in-cheek nature of it, but it is still a serious movie. And what's interesting is that I would have rather assigned you X-Men First Class, which is another Matthew Vaughn movie, because I think it's an absolutely excellent X-Men movie. But you don't like superhero movies. So this is the closest thing I could get to that. And I have no idea if you liked it or not. So I'm curious to hear. So tell me, Matt Runquist, what did you think of Kingsman?
Good review, Travis. No notes. That was great. No, I enjoyed it. Your notes on it are excellent, and I think I don't have major disagreements. The plot largely makes sense. It suffers a little bit from that thing where the first movie of a trilogy has to introduce the world and tell a story in the world. So there's definitely some like cooking along at a pace that maybe doesn't serve the story real well in the first half of the movie. But that's okay. I understand that. You know, what else? I do like the conceit here is that they started as a bunch of tailors who tailored clothing for extremely rich folks and found themselves also rich and decided to help the world by forming an independent secret service. Does that make any sense? Of course not. No, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Why would you not just buy an island and go live on it, right? But if you accept that premise, a lot of fun. Of course, you get to see some excellent costuming, as everybody is very well dressed, seeing as how they're tailors. And let's see, yeah, a lot of fun. There is a nice little fake out during the training sequences. There's the appearance of several of the students are killed during the training, and then at the end of the training, it's revealed that none of them were actually killed. We were just trying to make you believe that so that you would do your best and you would recognize how serious the situation is, because you will be in a situation with a bunch of people who are, in fact, trying to kill you. I liked the action sequences by and large. They are very fast-paced, but they're put together in a way that makes it relatively easy to understand what exactly is going on, and I love that. And that's often a sore point for me, because there's nothing I hate more than an action sequence where bodies are flying across the screen. You can't really tell who is where in the room. It's just a series of like dramatic shots without any sort of like storytelling flow. And this does not suffer from that at all. It's pretty easy to tell what's going on. That said, there is some camera work here that is very stylized in a way that I found pretty obtrusive at times. It's the style of the movie, right? And so I can forgive it that, but I didn't love it.
Right. It's very deliberate in its frenetic, style. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of I think what they're doing is they're actually dropping frames. So it's not like true double speed or anything, but they're just like dropping a few frames each time to speed people up in a herky-jerky kind of way, rather than smoothly doubling their speed or whatever. Let's see, what else? Sam Jackson. They also do things like they move the camera with the gun instead of the person. And so it's a very interesting, new and different kind of way to look at a scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Sam Jackson eats a lot of scenery, which is fantastic. There's no overacting like Sam Jackson overacting, and he's doing it very, very well here. And of course, that's what you want in a Bond villain, which is what this is. So I am going to call this out for the villain being like the same villain as a bunch of other movies around this time. I think Hollywood is suffering a little bit from. It used to be when you wanted to have a villain, you just picked whatever ethnicity was least in favor with the U.S. government, and then you made the villain that guy, right? And, oh, well, it's the Russians. And then it's like, oh, the Russians are our friends now. It's the Arabs. And, I think so Hollywood has come to terms with the fact that is objectively bad and racist, but has not yet figured out exactly what to do for a villain. And so they keep inventing these people who are like, I love the earth so much that I want to kill the population, right? And as a person on the left, and I think I called this out in MI4 as well, as a person who is on the left, there's no serious dialogue on the left about, hey, let's just murder half the population. That'll solve a whole bunch of problems. And so it does feel a little, I don't know, like the things that billionaires want to do in our world don't generally involve killing half the population.
I mean, how many billionaires do you know?
For environmental reasons, most of the billionaires.
There definitely are some flaws in the plan.
Yeah. So, but again, I don't want to read it too hard for that. I mean, I'm glad that it wasn't like, well, let's kill all the Jews or something, So, you have to have a bad guy, and the bad guy has to want to blow up the earth. And the reason why they want to blow up the earth is fundamentally unimportant,
Right. And it is a comic book, story. So it's okay if the comic book villain has a comic book motivation, I suppose.
Sure, sure.
Uh, anything else?
I really, I liked the gadgets. I thought it was very inventive because, of course, having like cool gadgetry is kind of a requirement of this type of movie. And I felt like they were well defined and differentiated from the other ones of these types of movies. There wasn't anything where I was like, well, you just stole that from Mission Impossible, or you just stole that from James Bond. Like they were clever and in keeping with the theme of the story. So I really liked that. Taron Egerton was really, really good. He was believable both as like a hoodlum.
Charming, too.
Charming even when he was being a hoodlum, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There's, this movie, I think, owes a debt to an awful lot of like British dramas about the, underclasses and sort of waves in the direction of those movies during those early sequences when he's like a tough who's, doing bad things and getting caught by a chav. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the slang. Yeah, but he does a really good job with it where it's believable. It's not like crazy overdone. And you believe why he is the way he is, and it's not, it's not a caricature, but it's believable, right? So I really liked all that, and I think he's believable as, a spy Kingsman dude, So Taron Egerton was really good, and as was Colin Firth. Really loved him a lot. I did feel like Michael
Caine,
the Caine was a little I don't know. I felt like it was using a shotgun to shoot a mouse, right? Like the character is just like the classic or now classic, like, oh, it turns out the head of the agency is actually a double agent, right? Like that.
Sure.
That's a story that's been told a lot now.
Sure.
And having Michael Caine do that felt like a really we don't need Michael Caine for this role.
Oh, interesting. I think that if they had cast anybody other than Michael Caine, it would have been even less satisfying, because Michael Caine is almost never the bad guy. And so by casting him, you give yourself a little bit more cushion against that kind of eventuality, which, like you said, is
ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was probably a good move. And side note, how else are you going to kill a mouse? You're not going to use a pistol to kill a mouse. That's too small of a caliber weapon to kill too small of an animal. So for me, I think a shotgun's not a bad idea.
I generally try to avoid firing a shotgun indoors, so I usually just invite the mouse to go outside.
You didn't specify that the mouse was inside. You just said a mouse.
I can neither confirm nor deny that this is a terrible conversation to be having.
One of the things I liked about this movie is there was a good surprise in that, and you always say spoiler alert, and in my mind I'm always thinking you don't need to because everyone's going to assume we're going to spoil things, but it is a spoiler, I guess. Then when Colin Firth goes to investigate this church where he knows that they're going to test this weapon, he ends up killing everybody in this church. And they make a point to show how despicable these people are, as the worst kind of Bible thumping hate mongers who are anti-Jew and anti-gay and anti-black and anti-everything. And so anyway, Colin Firth dispatches them when this secret weapon is revealed to be a mind control thing that basically causes people to become hyper violent. And then he walks out of the church and is killed by the villain. Mm-hmm. And I really liked, here he is. He's the hero of the story. I mean, yes, Taron Egerton's character is the Luke Skywalker of this story, and Colin Firth, being the Obi-Wan character, should die. That's fairly rote, but it's a surprise when he does, and it's kind of because you think that Colin Firth is James Bond, and he ends up not being, and he ends up kind of,
Yeah, he ends up being Ben Kenobi.
Ben Kenobi, yeah.
That scene, I will say that scene is extremely jarring because you don't know ahead of time what exactly this thing is supposed to do. You know that everybody has one, not everybody has one, but that a bunch of people have them, and you assume it's some kind of like way to transmit messages or yeah, sure, mind control. But Colin Firth's character does not have one, and so when he starts killing people willy-nilly, and yes, people who deserve to die, you're like, did he just go crazy? You're very disoriented, or at least I and my wife were very disoriented when that happened, because like it really takes, you want to be on his side, but this is some pretty brutal stuff, and
right. And they're awful people, but they're still innocent people.
But they're still people, right? And so you're like, what is going on? And then at the end, you do get the reveal. Yeah, he was under the control of this device, and there now it's a way of teaching you this device can affect you even if you don't have one, as long as you're within the area of effect. And that that makes sense, right? There's like a web of signals basically, and whatever. So I thought that was really well done, because it's surprising, and it's not a story beat that you get in most of these movies. Like that is legitimately a new thing. So, and probably the one like really truly new thing in there,
Yeah. And surprising that they just go ahead and kill him so quickly and unceremoniously, and like you think maybe that they're going to, like, he's going to somehow survive it and come back at the end of the movie, but he doesn't.
Yeah, well, I didn't think he was coming back. I thought they made it pretty cleler he was dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because and it might be my influence of the sequels. He does come back in the sequels, and it's one of the things I hate about the sequel is that they bring back his character in a very like hand wavy way, and I'm like, no, he died, and you just ruined that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this movie plays very fair, right? Like, when something happens on screen, there's not a big fake out, and there's not actually that was my body double, or that was a guy wearing a mask, or that was right, or the bullet glanced off my skull instead of or I was wearing the Bible that I stole from the bad guy, and that blocked the bullet, or whatever, right? Like,
yeah. Well, there's another thing that I liked that was fairly new in this movie, and that is the assistant assassin character to the villain. And it's this young girl who doesn't have legs, and she is instead she's got these prosthetic devices that are both springs and also blades, and she fights with those, and it's something I've never seen before.
Yeah, that's something I've never seen before, but it also, like, it doesn't just
strain. Like it?
Nah, it doesn't just strain credulity. It sends it right out the window. I mean, there's.
See, I didn't think so. I think, granted, it's a very outlandish thing, but I thought they presented it in a way that seemed like it was feasible, like plausible. Like these kind of prosthetics do exist in a way.
I don't know that outlandish and probable, really, there's not a whole lot of overlap between those two. Like, it felt pretty outlandish to me, but it didn't bother me or whatever. I was like, oh, this is the character that has the weird weapon.
You didn't even think it was cool?
Nah, not really, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was cool.
Sorry. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a good pair of high heels, but it was not clear, like, it was like they're either high heels or they're kangaroo boots or they're scimitars or they're like, it was just like whatever it needed to be in the moment. That's what it was. And it just happened to be that. And it just happened to work great. And, like it was a lot, right? I just felt like it was a lot. So anyways.
All right. Fair enough. Well, what did you think as far as rating? What do you want to give it?
This is another one that I really liked. I'm bouncing back and forth between an 8 and a 9 here. It's definitely not a 10 for me. There was a lot of the visual stuff was a lot for me. I I think it's a 9. It's a 9 for me. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Yeah.
Wow, that surprises the heck out of me. I'm so glad to hear it. You know what? I was thinking an 8, but I'm going to go ahead and jump on the 9 train. I'll give it a 9 too, because I liked watching this movie. There's really no flaws that weren't intentional. Everything that is in this movie is meant to be there. Everything from the style of special effects to the cheesiness of characters like the assassin woman, all of that is absolutely intentional. And there's a lot of it that is just cool, and I appreciate that. I even love there's a lot of symmetry in the movie with the bar fight scene at the beginning versus the bar fight scene kind of at the end, and I like all that. So yeah, I'll give it a 9 too. Yay! All right, fantastic. Well, great. Let's talk about music. Go.
Let's talk about music. So what did I... Oh, right. No, Interpol is a band that came out of the New York City indie rock scene in the early 2000s. Their first album, Turn on the Bright Lights, was a pretty big underground hit. It got a 10.0 from Pitchfork.com, which is the sort of arbiter of taste in the early 2000s when it comes to this style of music. And that is a very unusual rating. There are very few albums that get that rating every year. I think they even sometimes go an entire year without giving out a 10.0. So it was kind of a big deal. And I really like that album, but I think this album, their second album, is even more accessible, has some minor radio hits on it. And I really love this album. My favorite song on it is one of the big hits. It's called Slow Hands. I think it's number 5. I forgot to put it first for you. Sorry about that. But let's see. A lot of interlocking guitars. They use eighth note strumming a lot, like da 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 da, right? And it has a very propulsive force to it that I really love. I like the lyrics, but I don't listen to this music for the lyrics. I listen to this music to dance around and to be sort of body moving, you know?
Okay.
What'd you think?
Okay. So I didn't love this album. So I want to articulate why, and I will, while I think about that, give you my roommate's review. My roommate Dave just moved in a few weeks ago, and he has an extensive album collection, like vinyl collection, and so you and he might have a lot to talk about. But I asked him, I said, just randomly, I said, hey, do you know Interpol? And he goes, and he starts digging through his albums. I was like, you don't need to show me your copy of their album. Just yes or no. I just wanted to know if you knew them. And he pulls out his stack of Interpol albums. And he said, what are you listening to? I said, I'm listening to Antics. And he goes, oh, if you were depressed in an all-male Catholic high school in 2007, this was your album. And I think that probably tracks very well. I am not super into this emo rock type music that is fairly indicative of the early 2000s and probably the 90s to an extent too, maybe the late 90s. And one of the things that I really had trouble with this album was the mixing of the lyrics, right? I had a hard time understanding what they were saying. So a lot of it sounded to me like, and I'm like, I don't understand. And what's more is that so what you just said about having it on and dancing around the room, that I can understand, and I can kind of see it because the beat and the rhythm of the music is something I can definitely get behind. But as you know, I like to play these when I'm on my walks, and I listen to them on headphones. And there were moments not only that I couldn't understand, well, I mean, universally couldn't really understand the lyrics, but also, which is frustrating for me because they're there and they're there to be understood, and the singing isn't really great. It's mostly, it's not great singing. So at least let me know what you're saying. But but more of a problem is that there were actually parts of the songs that hurt my ears to listen to. So I had to turn it way down so that and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the guitar work or or what, but some of it was actually painful, to my ears.
Oh, no.
And that was rough. That was rough. I almost did not listen to it a second time. Mm-hmm. But I did, and I will give it this much. It gained a point in the second listening. Mm-hmm. But from where? Like from what was it before it gained that point? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, what you should really do is have Dave sit you down and listen to it on a stereo system, because presumably Dave has one of those.
Yeah, but it's not a great stereo system. It's a very cheap turntable and very cheap speakers.
Well, I think that's probably still better than AirPods for something like this. But anyways, yeah, I think certainly I suspected you would struggle a little bit with this album because I knew about the lyric problem. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I maybe know half of their lyrics, right? I do a lot of "It's fine and we slow hand." I do know the melodies, right? But I just kind of like fake the consonants, and I know the vowel sounds, and right.
Yeah.
But I like it, right? I like the melodies, and I really like the interplay between the bass and the guitar. They do a lot of just sort of interesting movement and forward propulsive action that I really, really dig. Yeah, if you were depressed in it, I was not depressed in a boys' high school in 2007. I was actually, I had just moved to Wisconsin from the Southwest, and I was reaching the end of my first marriage. And so I might have been lightly depressed, actually. Now that I think about it, that does kind of track a little bit, actually. Now that I think about it, but I really dig them. I can certainly understand why this would not be your favorite thing ever. My guess, if I had to guess, what was hurting your ears, I would guess it was the high frequencies from the guitar.
It probably was, I think, yeah.
This is very guitar-forward music. I listened to this week again, as I also try to do every week. And one thing that really stood out to me was the production on it, because I've been writing and recording and, listening more closely to the parts of music than I used to do around the time that I was listening to this album. I heard a lot of things that I hadn't heard before, just in, and nothing like major, but just like little grace notes and little extra bits added, little effects added on to some of the things. I listened on these over-the-ear headphones that I'm wearing, and you can really hear a lot of detailed sound that sort of escapes into the ether when you're listening on earbuds or even on a stereo in a room that's not acoustically treated. So I enjoyed listening to it again.
And that added to the experience for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That added to the experience for me. I enjoyed going back to it. This is probably one of my 40 or so favorite albums. Although honestly, it would be a coin flip for me whether this one or Turn on the Bright Lights is my favorite. Like, I kind of think of them as one album because of the two albums of theirs that I have like played over and over and over again, and so. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, what's your rating?
Oh, Antics? My rating for Antics is a 9. Absolutely. I love this album. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like I said, it did gain a point on my second listen, but I think it was pretty low going into that. I'm going to give it a, and this is just for me. I think it's probably I'll give it a 4 because I think that it might be something I could listen to in the background. But even the style of music just isn't my bag.
Okay.
You know,
This is
I definitely want to give credit for the talent that is there, and in respect to your love of that, I might have given otherwise a lower rating.
I was going to say, I was pretty sure there was a 3 coming down the pike there, but it's interesting because I do have your music for next week picked out, and it's not terribly different from this, but I think the ways in which it is different might find you adding several points to your score. So, should we get into that?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
this gives me an idea of what to give you too.
Oh, okay. So next week we have an album from Tegan and Sarah. Do you know Tegan and Sarah?
No.
Okay.
Is it a band or is it actually 2 people named Tegan and Sarah?
It is 2 sisters named Tegan and Sarah. Yep. So you may not think you know Tegan and Sarah, but they did the song Everything is Awesome from the Lego Movie.
I love Everything is Awesome. Everybody loves Everything is Awesome.
Yes, it's a great song. It's not super duper indicative of this album. They've gone sort of more of a dance pop direction, and their more recent albums are very much in the like ladies singing dance pop type of stuff. But this early album was when they were doing a lot more indie rock based things, and I got a little worried when you were talking about the sort of early 2000s indie rock guitar based stuff, and I was like, oh gosh, is he gonna hate this? But the nice thing about this is, first of all, ladies instead of gents, but also much clearer lyrics that you can understand, and I think are really good. So this is an album called The Con. It is, I believe, their second full length, and it is fantastic. There are so many lovely songs on this that I love. My favorite song on this, oh God, I am not sure. I gotta look at the list. I was gonna say Hop a Plane, but that's not my favorite. It's just a really good one.
Okay.
Back in Your Head. I love this. Travis, I wish you could see my YouTube music right now because there are thumbs up on nearly every single song on this.
Nice.
But yeah, that is my favorite. But it's all good. So I do, like, I try not to root for the albums because I know we have different taste in music, but I do really hope you like this album. This one, no, I'm not going to say that because it'll poison the well.
Okay.
I really like it. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Great. Well, I'm going to give you something that is it's on theme in that, you know how you said that this was similar of an album to last week's. I'm going to give you a movie that is similar to last week's. And just to stay on theme, it is a movie. It's similar in so many ways. It's an action comedy. It's got Samuel L. Jackson in it.
Yes.
And it's a movie in which I remember liking the first one, but I hated the sequel. And so I'm going to assign you The Hitman's Bodyguard. Have you seen it?
No. I don't think I've even heard of it.
I didn't think you probably had. It came out in 2017, and it's got Ryan Reynolds opposite Samuel L. Jackson, but it's also got Gary Oldman and Salma Hayek in it. The idea is that Ryan Reynolds' character has to protect Samuel L. Jackson, who is a hitman.
Okay.
So I think he's on his way to trial to testify against someone else or something like that. So it's The Hitman's Bodyguard. And it takes place in Europe, so it's got a lot of small road action car chases and using tiny little European cars. I do remember that there's a scene where they use a Ford C-Max, which was popular in Europe, but I also then bought a C-Max when they came to the U.S. So I was like, oh, it's my car. And so I have seen this once in theaters and not since, so I don't really remember if it holds up. I remember being shocked at how much I hated the sequel when I saw it. Like, I really didn't like it. But like, I remember liking this movie quite a bit.
All right.
So, but that being said, I have nothing invested in this.
So at least
it's not. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. It's not a movie I've seen 5 times and really want to share with you.
Okay.
I just think it's similar to the last week's movie in tone and action, and so I have been really curious to revisit it. So this will give me an excuse to do that.
All right, cool. Well, that sounds super duper fun.
Yeah. Hey, do you know that we have an email address that people can write to if they want to reach out to us?
I did know that. It's exposingourselvespodcast@gmail.com.
It is, as a matter of fact. And also, Matt, did you know that we have a Facebook page for this podcast?
I did know that. You could just search for Exposing Ourselves and it pops right up.
Shut the front door. That's so easy.
It's so easy.
And did you know that we actually have a comment on our Facebook page that we have not yet addressed?
Yeah. Sorry, Kevin. I feel super duper bad that we don't talk about the scores more often. But generally, I find scores to be unobtrusive. But what did you think of the Kingsman score, Travis?
Oh, you know what? I think the Kingsman's score was serviceable.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I have to say about it.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think that it was, as an action movie score, it was just fine. I think that the needle drops were a lot of fun, which is
that's a good point.
Something that Matthew Vaughn does well, I think. And but no, actually, Kevin's question that kind of spoke to me was about acting. And, because I had said something about how Joaquin Phoenix's performance in Joker was the best performance of the century for me. And he said, well, how do you distinguish good acting from good directing?
Okay.
And I think that that's a very interesting question. And I don't actually have a fully formed answer to it, other than to say that it's that for acting, it's easy to spot a good actor because you simply believe that they are who they're portraying, right? That the character that they're portraying on screen is a real living person, and that you believe what they're saying, right? I think the mark of a great actor is for you to know that the actor is portraying someone who is very different from themselves, and yet you still believe that person is real. And in the case of Joker and that character, it's a cartoon character, right? And it's always been a cartoon character. And you look at everything from Cesar Romero to Jack Nicholson to Mark Hamill to even Heath Ledger, and it's kind of cartoony. It's a broad, big performance. And I think that for me, the thing that made Joaquin Phoenix so impressive was that character who was so weird and out there and different and unique felt very real in a way that shocked me. So that's one of the things.
Okay, can I take a stab at this as well?
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know how to tell good acting from good directing, but I do know that good acting can't exist without good directing, right? I think you have to have a base of, like, the director is doing their job pretty well before the actor, the actor is going to do the best they can, but like the director has to put that actor in a position to succeed for the acting to shine through. If you drop Joaquin Phoenix into a Charles Bronson film, he's gonna be unremarkable.
But that's casting, and I think I will twist this a little bit and say that I don't necessarily agree that you can't have a good actor without a good director. I think there are plenty of just serviceable directors who have good performances that they manage to just point the camera at. But I do think it's possible for a bad director to make a good actor look bad.
Well,
look like
yeah,
a bad actor.
yeah, because we know this because the Star Wars prequels exist.
Yep, George
Yeah.
Lucas is a great example of that,
Oh,
and also, I think that X-Men 3 famously makes both Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen look like bad actors, and they are not, neither of them. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that is my answer to it for now.
All right, cool.
But if you have any thoughts, please feel free to reach out to us on Facebook or email us, and we'd love to hear your comments. And while you're at it, do us a huge favor and give us a rating at whatever source you are listening to this podcast on. That will help us immensely. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Travis, thank you very much for exposing yourself to me again this week.
Oh, I love doing it, and thank you for exposing yourself to me.
I also love doing it. I will see you next
Nice.
week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.